Hey guys, what's up? It's the Doctor of Violence, and in this video, I'm going to show you why violence isn't always criminal. John Wick style. What if I told you that there were only 5 types of violence in this world, and that we are all currently living in one of them? That violence, even though a human impulse, which may be dark or dangerous, is ultimately embedded in the very structures which have been designed to protect us. That the origins of law are not only developed in a response to curb violent tendencies, but that the law itself can work side by side with violence as a result of our own impulses and desires and systems of governance. Or more simply, that humanity has a use for violence. Okay, so most of us, unless you're a total masochist, most people think of violence in 2 categories: right and wrong. Now, society positions this as violence is good on behalf of the state, whereas when an individual who isn't, say, a cop or soldier uses violence, well, that's straight up criminal.
Say hello to my little friend!
And even the most basic definitions of violence subscribe to this category. Take this professor at NYU, for example, Dr. Slocum. He isn't British, and he begins his book by defining violence as a physical act intended to harm or injure. And though I totally agree with this as a point of origin, I'm kind of confused because this positions violence as something illicit, something to be disavowed, which on the one hand I agree with, but then how do we make sense of the multitude of instances of violence which are carried out in a so-called legitimate framework? I'm thinking of the presence of police with weapons all the time. Take the police, for example, or situations of war. Or take the good old revenge film, which usually works upon the premise that, let's be honest, we've all thought of it. Well, in a certain scenario, I could envision myself the ticking time bomb theory.
Where is the bomb? Where's the bomb? Where's the bomb? Where's the bomb? Tell me where the bomb is. Tell me where the bomb is or I will kill Assad. Tell me where the bomb is!
Or what I like to call, touch my beagle and I'll you up. I know what you're thinking, or at least I am. Hey, wait. There is clearly something going on which separates or distinguishes one type of violence from another. And the short answer, it's the law.
Sit down!
In the case of war, for example, law intervenes to mediate the use of violence through things like just war theory, which is basically like a set of rules which apply to situations of combat. So law, as it turns out, is pretty culpable. It isn't fixed, so actually a cool way of understanding violence is not through some sort of preordained antagonism, but rather violence engages in a series of relationships with law which serve to shift the perception of law, or the particular function of violence changes in relation to how law and violence coexist in a certain context. Tongue twister. In sum, violence always has a function. AKA, there is usually a reason why violence is being used. You may not always agree with it, but... And now it's time for my big fat Greek interlude, Aristotle style. So the Greek freak is killing it this year. No, not that one. This one. So Aristotle was kind of obsessed with eudaimonia, which he deemed to be the highest human good, the thing which people aim at. And what makes people unique is their characteristic, their function, or the activity that distinguishes them from other things. Now, well, the Greek freak wasn't talking about violence, but we can use his ideas to formulate a way of analyzing violence as an action which aims at something. So what distinguishes one type of violence from another is its function, the purpose or aim of that act of violence. So what ultimately separates one act of violence from another is its purpose. And here is where law fits in, because if we think of law as something that is flexible, law intervenes to justify the use of violence in certain circumstances.
Private Joker, what did you do in my beloved court? Sir, to kill, sir!
So now let's apply this stuff, okay? So the Greek freak says people are distinguished by their function, what they aim at, and violence is defined through its function. And law likes to supervise violence. So, state violence is distinguished through its rationality. And a clear example of this is just war theory, which is a series of conditions which make war just, by answering three requirements. When it is right to go to war, jus ad bellum. What is right to do in war, jus in bello. And how should we end war, jus post bellum, because we don't want another war. Okay, so we have run through state violence, conferred with a Greek philosopher, talked a bit about function, and made things official with the relationship of law and violence. But why does this matter? Well, it's important to see how violence isn't always this extreme, crazy, criminal type of thing, which is always in opposition to the law. But I'm also saying, and y'all crazies out here can't go and justify violence. I'm not going there. We are talking about film, people. Rather, violence functions as a part of state power. Violence is embedded in our systems of governance. And also, I wanted to throw the idea out there that even though the state aims at using violence in a legitimate way, paying attention to rules and such, these boundaries aren't always so clear. They're porous and susceptible to corruption. So that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for watching. Hit subscribe, hit those notifications. Definitely drop stuff in the comments. DM me any suggestions, points you don't get, or you just don't like. And thank you so much. I appreciate you. Tongue twister!